All right, is everybody nice and cozy? Do they need anything? We're all good? Good. Well, welcome to Like-Minded Spirits. My name is Ashley Eldefri, and thank you so much for joining us today. During our conversation today, we are going to be using the term QTBIPOC. QTBIPOC stands for Queer and Trans, Black, Indigenous, People of Color, and what we did is, queer is an umbrella term for the LGBTQIA plus community. And by including BIPOC, we make sure all cultural identities, all sexual orientations, all gender identities are recognized and represented in our space. With that being said, please be mindful of the space and the people around you today. Please make a friend, say hello. But we are a space of positivity and like-mindedness. So any sort of disrespect, any sort of, will not be tolerated in our space, and we will kindly ask you to leave. So thank you for joining us today. Please enjoy yourselves, and feel free to come and say hi to all of us after our seminar. Thank you.
Literally, thank you. We're so happy that you are here. Right now, we also want to say thank you to the CAPS. Thank you all for setting up the room and everything. Thank you. They're right now passing out a cocktail made by Ashley. Would you like to talk about the cocktail while they're getting in?
So the cocktail that we are serving to everyone today is called the Huria Lemonade. Huria means freedom in Arabic, and we created this cocktail, in reflection of my Middle Eastern heritage. It includes mint, honey, watermelon, and oranges. Mint, honey, and watermelon and oranges are common staples in Arab cuisine, and watermelon has become a symbol of resistance and solidarity with the people of Palestine. We've also created a za'atar honey syrup to sweeten your lemonade today. Za'atar is often mislabeled, but it originates from Palestine. And the lemonade actually can be traced back to Cairo, Egypt. So please enjoy this little piece of me today. And if you want a refill, do not hesitate to ask. And yeah, enjoy. Cheers.
Cheers. Yes. So we're happy here at Like-Minded Spirits today, okay? Well, let's talk a little bit about what we're going to be focusing on here. The seminar will blend historical context with firsthand experience to highlight the direct and profound impact of QT/BIPOC communities have on the evolution and development of this industry, right? We are pretty much going to focus on how we have shaped it and where we stand and how we fit into the career of beverage professionalism. Sorry, I just ever said that. I've never said beverage professionalism before. I just said that just now for you guys. This is a platform of authentic and intersectional narratives and will cover topics from colonization and cultural appropriation to education, networking, and inspiration for the future. Thirdly, a commitment to inclusivity, cultural awareness, and the creation of spaces beyond TOTC where QT, BIPOC, and are empowered to thrive. So really, we're talking about why we are here, why we should be here, why we'll never be leaving, and why we need to be getting our due coins and flowers and reasonings, if that makes any sense. So we're going to talk a little bit about who's here and also who we wish was here. Oh, I did it. Okay. Sorry. There we go. All right. So I'm Kapri Robinson. I am based in Washington, D.C. Ashley reached out to me to moderate this, and I've never moderated something so important, so I'm super fucking nervous. So excuse me. I am the founder of Chocolate City's Best, which is a nonprofit organization for Black and brown bartenders. It's a huge network of opportunities and different things, and I really, really think that this conversation is the most important that needs to happen at every conference in the world. I'm so happy to be here right now and gonna pass it to Rox.
Dagote, Danijo Hiaji, she Roxanne Fernandez Tiburolobo, Gunse, she bedonkahe San Carlos Inde Nation, she bawichon bikea, she matunde rarmuri, she sisuguichi bikea, she tatunde inde, she tsikaran bikea. So I'm Roxanne Fernandez Tiburolobo. I'm a San Carlos Apache, Chiricahua Apache from the San Carlos Reservation specifically. I have been working in alcohol production for 12 years now. Predominantly, I make spirits. I've worked as a distiller for the last 6 years, though I did start in craft beer originally. I'm one of 5 native distillers in the country, and we can talk about why there's so few of us later in this talk. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and pass it along.
Hey everybody, how's it going? My name is Erika Flowers. I'm based here in New Orleans. I've lived here since 2008, originally from the Bronx, New York. And I'm the bar lead at Compare Le Pen right now. And it's been such a pleasure being there. I found myself into the industry fairly recently. You'll hear about that later through a great organization called Turning Tables, which I will also speak on. But through that, I found clarity for a lot of things. I also founded my company, Taste of the Tropics, where I host experiential pop-ups, create and curate products inspired by my Caribbean heritage, and just an all-around creative entrepreneur in many different ways, multifaceted, have lived many lives here in New Orleans, and happy to be on this panel today, honored as well.
And hello, everyone. My name is Ashley Eldefri. I am the Northeast Ambassador for Casa Lumbre Spirits. I've been in hospitality for about 12 years, moving from back-of-house roles to service roles, then to hospitality management. And I've sort of was constantly looking for a way to make sure the QTBIPOC community was represented in our industry, and so I fully dedicated my career to making sure that I can create safe platforms and safe hospitality spaces for the communities that matter. And beyond that, I co-founded a QTBIPOC event collective called Real Love NYC, where we throw events that are in celebration of the QTBIPOC community, but also prioritize elevated cocktail experiences, networking opportunities, and it's a beautiful blend of music, fashion, spirits, and just connectedness. So I'm very excited to be here today alongside these amazing people. I've been inspired by them for so long, and just to be able to share the room with them, exchange ideas with them, it's very beautiful to be here, because I feel like a space like this is exactly what I've been working to create. So thank you for all of you joining in and sitting in and listening. And unfortunately, LyAnna, Sanabria, our other panelist, got caught up in this flight delay, cancellation, hot mess, and unfortunately couldn't make it today, and has been so deeply heartbroken that she couldn't share the stage with us. But please look out for her on social media. She is the co-founder and beverage director for Poppy Portland in Portland, and it is the first Puerto Rican restaurant in that area. So big kudos to her. She is killing it in this industry, and we sincerely wish that she was here with us today.
Woo! Thank you all so much. Also, the booklets in front of you also have our information. They have the recipe of the cocktail for you and a little area to take notes if you need to take notes or write down your questions that we'll get to at the end of the panel today, okay? So let's get into the conversation. Also, we have our own cocktails. We'll talk about that later, though. But we all made a cocktail that we felt like embodied us for this conversation. Yes.
I'm so sorry. I completely forgot to mention. There are note cards on the table in front of you. What we would like to do, what we would like to propose to you all is to ask us a question ahead of the seminar. Feel free to put whatever you want down, and someone will come by, collect those questions, and at the end of our seminar, we want to see if we answered any of your questions. Also, we love animosity, and we love being able to give people the space to feel comfortable to ask questions, because I understand that that's a little difficult sometimes. So please feel free to write whatever comes to your mind, and we'll be more than happy to answer that at the end of the seminar.
Yeah, nothing's wrong or right here, right? Literally, put it down. Let's talk about it. We don't change. We don't have hard conversations. So, next up, sorry, slide. Yes, okay, here we are. First question, going to everyone. This is gonna be very communal in speaking. No conversation per person, and we're just gonna get into a conversation, okay? Like we're sitting at a table I missed the breakfast today with everyone, and I feel like I'm here with everyone. So how do traditions or ancestral practices from your communities currently influence modern day hospitality and spirit landscapes? And how have these contributions been integrated or erased in the mainstream industry? How do we feel?
So I'm going to come at this from the spirit landscape aspect of it, since I work in production predominantly, but I think a lot of the stories that get lost, corn spirits in particular, things that we consider very American spirits, a lot of those processes are derived from things that my people have done. Both of my people, I forgot to mention that I'm also Raramuri on my mother's side, but have traditional fermented corn beverages, which are the basis for things like bourbon and corn whiskey and whatnot, as well as a long history with agave spirits. And I think a lot of that gets lost when we talk about these beverages and their origins, and the people that have really been working with these different types of fermented beverages for thousands of years. And we don't really have that conversation where natives tend to get excluded from those conversations. And I think we've really helped shape the modern drink landscape when you look at the diversity of spirits, especially what's becoming popular now with like agave spirits and ancestral mezcals and things like that, which all have their traditions in indigenous drinks.
Yeah, I think a lot of what I've seen is more people are going back to their roots in a lot of ways that they express themselves in general. So I think it's very on point that we're unveiling the roots today. But I mentioned earlier how I was a student in turning tables, and it's a 12-week program that basically taught me the foundation that I needed to become a bartender. And one of the first reading materials that they provided for us was an article about Black bartenders. And that really changed my whole perspective going into this industry and this practice, hearing about like Tom Bullock and Cato Alexander and all these people who were like not necessarily in the forefront face of the industry, but had so many large contributions to things that are so popular, like the mint julep. You don't really hear their names. Because it is their faces that you saw in the beginning, and then all of a sudden it's this white guy with the mustache and the apron and the top hat. And I think when we consider the beginnings of that and having that knowledge right off the bat, going into this program and learning about bartending, it was very empowering for me to hear those stories. And a lot of people don't know about their roots, similar to a lot of people who were brought to this country and don't know where they actually came from. So, so entering this program, knowing where bartending came from as it applies to me and how I look and who I am was very important. And I think those stories need to be told, and the originators of a lot of these cocktail recipes need to be praised just as much as the person who's doing a riff at this fancy bar that we love to go to these days, So that's what I have to say about that. Oh, and then also, as far as as far as integration of different techniques, some things like charcoal filtration, things that stem back to practices in Africa are not always highlighted. And I think having those conversational pieces in the way that people explain their certain brands, and whiskey production and all of that, that it should be more on the forefront. And yeah.
So for me, a lot of the tradition that I've noticed, or honestly in hospitality in general, majority of the people that are a part of our industry are BIPOC and queer and trans, and we are really leading this industry right now. And the common thread between all of us is that our cultures are so deeply rooted in gathering and sharing space. I think about my Colombian roots and my Egyptian roots, and we always have some sort of tea time or some sort of, little cafecito after dinner, and that is your space to gather, gossip, exchange just ideas. And that has integrated into hospitality just like so deeply. We have this, I feel like, innate feeling to want to host and want to just take care of one another. And I think that is just so deeply rooted in our cultures and our ancestors that have passed that on to us. There's just, I don't know, I feel like we're just naturally inclined to want people to sit at our bar and just, come together and just be like, oh my God, let me make you this amazing meal. Let me make you this amazing cocktail. And it really is a labor of love. And just, I feel like that has transcended through all of the generations up until now. And I think, we all kind of share that just need to gather, honestly.
This thing. I literally, when I looked at this question, I thought about cookouts. So something about me a little bit is that I don't know what my roots are, right? I don't know how far back or where my family came from. I am a part of that removed, Black American removed from their heritage. I don't know that. So it's been a journey for me, right? I went to HBCU, I went to Howard University, and that's when I first was like, oh, Black people, like, we do things. Oh shit, damn, and it wasn't a big thing in my family either, right? It wasn't big for my family to do African American things. My mother was always like, oh my God, Black people, they're late, they're this or that. And so it was huge for me to go to HBCU, and then huge for me to notice how much I needed that and needed community. But I literally thought about coming together as something that we do as a tradition, and things like celebrations for wins in this country or in general, right? I'm thinking about Juneteenth and the red drink, right? That is something that you see amongst a lot of communities with the hibiscus or sorrel, with the stewed spices and different things like that. These influences, I guess today you see are being like for money, and that's a lot. I would say the erasing is that, oh, this is not just a tradition for everything. It's erasing, and it's like now it's for capitalism.
Yeah, that part.
And that's a lot. And I think we see that in general of all of our backgrounds and traditions and ancestral things that should be sacred and revered, right? It's being for money, and sometimes that is hard. Yes. Yeah, which is going into the next question. Look at me. Oh, God, Jesus Christ.
It refuses.
Oh, see?
Y'all didn't see that.
Is that the one?
Yes.
Okay, it is the one. I'm sorry. I'm trying to look at the mirror. So, for the panel, how does cultural appropriation affect the legacy of your communities within our industry? And what does cultural appreciation look like to you? I'm sorry, there.
I'll jump right in.
Okay.
I mean, I think we've all seen several bar influencers over the years using sacred medicines like Palo Santo and white sage that have no business being in cocktails. being used very publicly, despite the fact that we've been having these conversations for years. So that's one of the more blatant examples of cultural appropriation that continues, and it's really, I think it's because people have this disconnect from their communities and their own culture, and so seek out other ways of trying to connect, but don't actually consult the people that those things come from, and then commodify things that have no business being commodified. You know, as far as creating a more inclusive industry, I mean, it's exhausting that this year, you know, a large company thought that it was appropriate to have a Wild West themed party. And I think that one of the ways that we can respectfully show up in the industry is just hire somebody from that community to like inform you what is appropriate and what isn't. If you want to get those opinions on things, like actually consult with the communities, because seeing something like that tells me that there's not a Native person in the room at any given point in time to like tell you all the reasons that shouldn't be a thing. Because that, you know, we had a whole text thread in the Native alcohol industry about that when we saw it, and it was just basically like, yeah, well, now I know I'm not welcome there. Like that immediately tells me that that's a place that I'm not welcome, because you're not considering me as a person. So, yep.
Yeah, so there is a local DJ, artist, creative, Flem, who, you know, his statement has been everywhere. People like to, what is that, imitate, but you can't duplicate. Everything you love about New Orleans is because of Black people. It's such a powerful statement, and it was something that kind of went viral. And it's really true. It's like people come here and it's really up to you what kind of experience you're wanting to have, but having that appreciation for the people who make the culture rich when it comes to music and food and all of these things is like so very important. And the same thing goes for within the hospitality industry, whether we're talking about food or beverage. I think just to speak on the appreciation side, because we know what is appropriate and what is not. But like you said, employ people who know, consult with people who know, especially if you're going to try to imitate certain flavors and just things that might be trending at the time, or even if it's with the words that you're using in marketing, you know, like everyone tries to create this like cool like hashtag or statement that's good for the PR piece, but it's like, how does this land within that community? How can you like touch base with some leaders within those spaces just to consult and be like, hey, we're, you know, releasing this piece or this cocktail or this anything. What are your opinions on this? We want to make sure that it's well received within your community. Like there are ways to open that conversation to not make it weird. And as weird as you think it might be to start that conversation, I think the person on the other end is truly going to appreciate your effort at the end of the day. Something to also speak on, I love Tales of the Cocktail. Since being on this side, being a bartender, I've been able to experience it in a different way in the city. And something that I learned very quickly is that there are so many people that look forward to this week and would love to work, and they don't even know how to work these events. And it is only within these past few years that I've seen more people taking the initiative to employ people, especially people of color, who work in the city, who are usually like just living paycheck to paycheck, you know, for these gigs that they truly need to make it through this slow summer. So I commend the people who have created like the Google Forms or touch base with Turning Tables to hire our alumni or reach the New Orleans community to get them into these spaces. So you see a true reflection behind these bars of the city that you're in. You know, like it's cool to bring your bar team here and do your bar takeover, but you know, it's important to share the wealth, you know, when it comes to other things. And I've seen these large brands listen to the cries of the people like, we need money too. And it's awesome. We appreciate it. And I think that's a way that you can show appreciation for the spaces that you are in. And just maintaining these DEI efforts as well. I think a lot of people, they stand up during Black History Month and they're like, we love Black people. And then it's like, okay, let's take all this shit down after it's done, you know? So it's really about holding true to your word in so many ways beyond just parading your token black person or person of color or whoever around like, oh yeah, we got one over here, you know? It's like, how do you stand up for them and advocate for them in those spaces when you have a guest come in and who's disrespecting them? Is it still the customer is always right, or are you gonna do the right thing and step in and be like, I'm here for you, I'm sorry, sir, ma'am, whoever, we're gonna have to ask you to leave, you know? And like seeing management or your peers stand up for you in that way is also how you can really support those communities. Like it's the small ways. It's not the posting, Happy Black History Month, I have like 2 black friends, you know? Like it's beyond that in ways that you can really feel appreciated in these spaces.
Wow, how do I follow that? No, to your point, to your earlier point about just reaching out to people and asking them, okay, we're using your ingredients, we're using things that you have cultivated through time. How would you like that to be labeled? How would you like that to be represented in the industry? And to that point, something I feel very strongly about is labelizing the label of Mediterranean versus Arab cuisine, or versus just yeah, there's a white European, Eurocentric connotation to the word Mediterranean. It's sexy, it's exotic, it's otherworldly, but in the Mediterranean, there are African countries, there are Arab countries, there are European countries, and it goes beyond just labeling the area as something that is approachable to white people. And in reality, it's important for us to pay respect to the indigenous foods and drinks to the region and label them as they are and remind people that this is where these things come from. And it is important to tap in and ask people, how should we label this? What is the appropriate way of speaking on this or using this? And in terms of appropriation, the mislabeling is more than enough. You know, you go to a restaurant and it's just one thing, and there's 5 different types of world cuisines on the menu, but it's just one name on the top, and it's kind of incorrect, you know? And in terms of appreciation, hire people that represent those cultures. Exactly to your point, it's like, in order to make sure that you're doing the right thing, if you can't fill that role, if you can't fill that space, create the space for the right person to step in and represent it correctly, because we just have to make sure that we do right by the people that have brought this to us. This is all of these ingredients, all of these drinks, all these techniques are gifts to us. They didn't have to share it with us through time, and it's stuff that we've passed down as a friend, as a neighbor, and truly, it's a privilege. It's a privilege to experience all of these different cultures and things alike, and we have to make sure that in that process, we're not erasing the people that have brought it to us or have brought it to America or anywhere, really.
I think it's very important that we're talking about the hiring. Definitely having people in the conversation when things are being created, the events are being created, but also invite, right? You can still hire and it still be appropriation because the crowd doesn't look like what you hired for, if that makes any sense, right? Like in DC, we have go-go. That's our music of the city, right? If I'm going to a go-go and it's just white people standing out there, I'm confused. I am. Just, what is this for? Who is it for? At that point, the culture of DC is being voyeured, right? You're just being watched, if that makes any sense, you know? And that's, I think that's where I get a little bit irritated with the appropriation, like, bitch, who it for? And you know, who is this for? And going back to the Wild West party. Okay, fine. We're gonna not give it that no one was in the room when you guys came up with this, but where's the invitation? Where is I would love for your presence to be in the room, you know? And then that means you want me to be in the room so I can either tell you this shit is fucked up or this is really great, right? So I think that's where we're missing a lot in the industry. It's this thing seems trendy, this thing seems cool. Oh, I'm going to this city, so we have to have this. I'm going to New Orleans, so I have to have beignets here. We have to have beignets. You know, like it's like we understand what is of a thing, but why is that thing a part of this area, a part of these people? Why is what people are missing, and they're not looking for it, and that's annoying. It was really hard, I think, for this question to figure out what cultural appreciation has looked like, you know? The appreciation part is kind of like, if it wasn't done by us, for us, where was the appreciation? And, you know, that makes sense. And I think that goes into our next question a little bit about what can allies do to create more inclusive and respectful industry environments?
I mean, we touched on this a little bit, but clearly it's like, again, culture is community is a two-way street. And you need to actually be, as we said, hiring people, showing up for people, inviting people to these spaces. And it needs to be the kind of atmosphere that those people want to go to. It's like, period. Yeah, it's really easy to like lose. You can't just tokenize people, which I think is what we see more often than not. Is really like people want you to be there and be at their talk or represent. I won't work most of the time with other people unless I know other natives, like have vetted them. I don't go on podcasts. I don't do this stuff. I don't speak unless I know the person personally or other natives have vetted them for me, because I know how quickly that switches around and somebody takes something that I say. I can only represent myself. Like I can't even represent my whole community because 570 different tribes and everybody does things different and we all have our own very distinct cultures, and so I can only talk to my own experiences and what I do. So it's just one of those things, and it's so easy to get thrown in and somebody says, well, my native friend said that it was okay. The monolith aspect, right? Yeah. Nobody here is a monolith. Yes, exactly.
I think as far as inclusivity in things, you can't speak on that and not talk about the access to those things, especially when you view it through the light of the financial light of it, you know? When I think about the certifications that I've been able to acquire, luckily I have, you know, the resources in the community who have been able to connect the dots for me and get me some really amazing opportunities. But then I look at other people who do not have these thousands of dollars to pay for this little piece of paper or go travel on a whim and miss work for like 4 days to a week, you know, to acquire these things. Like I said, slow change is being made, and I love that. More of these organizations are creating work-study opportunities or scholarship opportunities, but even within that, it's like, what about the little guy? What about the person who's not so popular on social media? You know, like I've benefited from a lot of these scholarships and resources, and I even know where I stand with that. You know, I put myself out there, I have this following, but also it's like, how can I pass along these opportunities to other people? So in my own right, I try to do my due diligence to pass it on to other people that look like me who might not be tapped into the Turning Tables Network or organizations of that nature. But I think it's important for people who facilitate these certifications, these classes, even these conferences, to provide ways for more people to access them, because it's a constant conversation that's brought up. Well, why have you never been to this conference? Or I've never seen you here. Like, you should consider this. And it's like, oh, I can never consider that. I can't afford to take off work. You know, I can't afford to travel here. Where am I going to stay? Or I can't even, the initial fee is too much for me. You know, like I just paid rent. So I think that's important to continue to realize that it will always be an issue. And we look at these organizations who give back and they have mutual aid, and people are like, well, they got this year. I think that's enough. And I'm like, it's never enough. There's always more people coming into the industry. There's always a need. There's always a desire to elevate and to learn more. Like, so I think in many ways, it should be accounted for in these brands' budgets to be giving back to these different certifications that, you know, they might have some sort of sponsorship or ties to, like we're providing the alcohol. Hey, also, let's give these thousands of dollars as well to provide a scholarship to a few people on our behalf, I think are some things that should be considered.
Yeah, beautifully said. Yeah, access is super duper important, and that is one of the biggest things that our allies can do for us is really just pass the platform, you know, provide those resources that are just accessible, free, and for our communities. And to your point, Rox, we can't represent our entire community as one person. Everything is really just like one size fits one. And it's, you know, I can only speak to a certain extent on my community's behalf, especially as a first generation, as a mixed person. There's so many nuances there that I wish I could speak on behalf of both of my cultures, but I can't. So what can I do there, and how can I be an ally to my community as well? It's like, if I can't be that person, there is somebody there, and it's important for us to really just share platforms. I think that to me is really, really big, and something that definitely needs to be improved. To your point, brand budgets, and just making sure that they extend it beyond what they already know, and just be open to the uncomfortable. I think these conversations are very uncomfortable to have, and these, you know, asking that first question, wondering like, oh my God, is this the right move? Yeah, it's okay to feel uncomfortable by it, and just ask and reach out to people, and just really make sure that, you know, like you're doing everything that you possibly can to make sure that they're being adequately represented.
To just circle back really quick, I just wanted to bring up too, one of the things that you can do to be a really good ally is look at a room, look who's not there, and ask why those people aren't there, and then learn how to show up for them in that sense. Because, and even going into beyond just hospitality, but in the industry in general, it was illegal for natives to have distilleries until 2018. And I bet none of y'all knew that. You could not have a distillery on tribal land until like 6 years ago. And the reason nobody knew that is because nobody cared. Nobody looked and said, why are there no native-owned liquor brands? And so nobody bothered. And that was something we had to do. The Chehalis tribe ended up spearheading that, but do for ourselves. Nobody was going to get that changed for us. And that's because nobody was looking around and saying, well, why aren't these people here? Why are there so many distilleries on their land, but none of them are owned by them? And so that's a thing that you can do as an ally, is like really look at the rooms, look at what you're putting on, the events that you're putting on, look at the rooms, look who isn't there, and think about why they're not there. And then figure out a way to bring them and make it welcoming. And if that means giving them a budget to show up to a thing and, you know, giving them those opportunities, absolutely, then you should be doing that to show up.
Absolutely. You know, I really like that you said, how can I be an ally myself? Because that is a real question too. Just like, what are you also doing to help the room be more for you? My eye is burning, like, I don't know why. I'm sorry. I can't even think. It's like, what the fuck did I do? I think my hair dye got in it. But yes, wow. Did not know that at all. Did y'all know that? I mean, Chalky fucking did. Of course she did. And she needs to. But that's crazy. And I think that's also what's scary a little bit about this conversation too, is that we know so little of each other's communities, right? So being an ally is literally reaching out and trying to figure out what's going on. Damn, that's crazy. I'm sorry, that really blew my mind just now. But on to the next one. Did you all see the meme where it's like bartenders never know how to use the remote controls for the TVs? And they're always like, this is how I feel. I feel that way. Aha, there we go. It's so hilarious. I was like, Jesus Christ, they're right. Talking about stereotypes, what stereotypes are perpetuated because of the way your history has been documented? Oh, see, let's get. Sorry. We're going to talk about that. But what we're going to talk about now is how do you and other industry leaders draw inspiration from historical predecessors? Ooh, this is a good one. I love this one. And cultural influences to keep tradition and ancestral practices alive. That's wild.
I mean, I don't have a lot of, in my industry, leaders, or because of what we just talked about, people that I could look up to. There weren't, when I started in alcohol, there were very few natives in alcohol. There's still very few natives working in alcohol. So I didn't have anybody really to look up to. And I had to create a lot of spaces for myself. But as far as keeping, traditions and ancestral practices, really the whole reason I entered this industry is because I grew up making like ancestral beers with my grandmother. My Raramuri grandmother is part of their ceremony. It's part of the things that they do. So that I try to keep that in mind when I'm working. It's not in that keeping the sacredness, like making whiskey isn't sacred for me, but it keeps me attached to it. Like I recognize it as a food product and like where corn comes from and where these ingredients, it connects you to it in a way that is more than just looking at it as like something to drink, like understanding that there's a connection to land and all the processes that go into that, that really make a quality beverage type situation. And that's what keeps me grounded a lot, is like connecting to that aspect of it. I feel like I actually, in a lot of ways, had less of a good relationship with alcohol before I got into the industry doing production, because it allowed me to like gain that connection and like recognize it and respect it so much more than what I was doing previously when I was just fucking off in college or whatever. There's something about making something with your hands every day, and being able to understand where it comes from and all the ingredients and all the actual labor that goes into it, that builds a connection with it, at least for me personally. And that keeps me grounded and like really aware of where my stuff comes from. And I try to be mindful of that in my own purchases and things like that in my life and the brands that I choose to support with my money.
I love that. So I'm a first generation Belizean. Both of my parents are from Belize. So growing up in New York in what felt like little Caribbean, you have like a bunch of Jamaican people, Guyanese. I didn't realize until I moved down south how different my experience was as a Caribbean American versus being an African American. From like the music and the food and just the day-to-day everything, the way I talk. Teray's nodding his head. He's like, yeah, she Caribbean. That was very Caribbean of you. But no, that is a thing, and it's something that I had to realize, but also something that will never leave me, because those are my roots, and I feel very lucky to know where I've come from, in that way. Like, there are generations of Belizeans that I could trace back, and then Barbados and Guatemala as well. Like, thank God for the family historians, who are able to tell me, but I know that's not the same experience people have as African Americans. So I think for me, there's such an importance to hold true to my roots, and that's part of why I created Taste of the Tropics. Like, I started that back in the pandemic when I was way more active as far as like the pop-ups that I was doing and like setting up my table and creating all these different goods. Jenna's like, yeah. But yeah, it was so important for me to have that continuity of like always including these tropical flavors. I'm at Compare Le Pen now, and it's a Caribbean restaurant. I'm happy to be working with the St. Lucian chef, Chef Nina Compton, who in her food, it's her culture, it's the flavors of her childhood. And when I was asked to join the team, I was like, this is perfect. Rum for everybody, like tropical flavors. We got hibiscus, we got coconut, we got this, that, and the third. And it made me feel good that I was in a space that wasn't looking at it as like performative in a way. I wasn't tokenized in a way. It's like, I really feel like I'm tapping into my roots. People are gonna come here and realize like, wow, not only am I getting this Caribbean inspired food, but I'm getting drinks to match, which is something beautiful. And it's also something new for that space as well that I was happy to bring to life. And I'm still in the process of, like getting my footing in that space. But I think ultimately, it plays true to who we all are. Living in New York and coming to New Orleans, they're both port cities. You know, there are a lot of Caribbean people who have found homes in New Orleans and New York. So when I look around, I see a melting pot of different cultures, a melting pot of people, and it's like, why wouldn't you feel confident in, you know, just showing who you really are? But, you know, the people who aren't, they're in spaces where it's like, why do you talk like that? Why do you smell like that? What did you bring in for lunch today? What is that? You know, like there's so many talks around that. Like I had a friend, and it was on a show, and I had to laugh because I'm like, this is real shit. Like they brought in curry for lunch and everybody like shitted on them. And they're just like, why are you bringing this in? What smells like that? You know? And it's those moments that you never forget that really make you like dim your lights and dim who you really are and your roots and your culture. So I think I'm someone who will scream from the top of the hills. I'm like, well, my family's from Belize and we eat this and I love these flavors. This was always in my house, you know, and wherever I go, I try to sprinkle a little of me in there, because if you don't know who you are, then what do you know? And the more that you know yourself and you love yourself, the more you'll excel in life, the more you'll realize your destiny and your purpose, and things just look a lot brighter and better when you do, you know, when you can walk through life knowing who you are and feeling confident in that. And the icing on the cake is having people that surround you that empower you to be that, you know, and uplift you in those ways. What was the question? So I just went on a rant. Oh, and then when I think of drawing inspiration from historical predecessors, there are some people who, you know, I've read in books and never got the opportunity to meet them because it was so many years ago, but I look around and I have historical people who I know down the line will be in these books. I'm looking at one right now who I love, Teray Folks. People like Kapri and the people I'm here with, Tiffany Berrier, Kiata Parker, are all people that I look up to in this industry. So I'm like surrounded by the historical predecessors who continue to inspire me, encourage me, uplift me. And it's important for me to just hold true and steady onto this path no matter how rocky it gets, because I feel like I too will be one of those people, you know, and having that mindset as we move forward, that we're not only honoring the people who have gone before us, but honoring ourselves and like our path and destiny is like so important to just keep in mind on those days where it's just like, I'm fucking tired, you know? And that was literally me yesterday. If you're like, how are you? I'm like, I am so grateful. I'm not tired, I'm not angry, I'm not all these things, you know? It's just like remembering who you are, why you're doing it, your purpose, your why. I feel like we discussed in our own conversations, and today we will. But yeah, I'm gonna pass the mic on to you, 'cause I can just talk a lot.
Well, the other side of this, I feel honestly a lot of guilt sometimes because I've witnessed my family come to this country and, you know, give up everything to create an amazing life for me, and having two cultures that are so strong and also so interconnected, it really has pushed me to think beyond the binary of what I already know, and to question myself and just really, you know, understand that, like, you know, this first generation guilt is a burden that we have to carry, unfortunately, but it's important for us to educate ourselves on our families and where they came from, and also, to your point, we are historical predecessors for the people that are coming after us, and while I'm learning something new every single day and I'm strengthening that muscle for myself, I have to keep reminding myself that I'm not doing this for me, I'm doing it for the people that are coming after me, and I have to make sure that I really take the right steps to educate myself to make sure that I really, you know, can make an impactful future for our industry. And to your point, New York, I think being born and raised in the East Coast and having my family immigrate to New Jersey, and it's where all the Colombians landed, honestly. Like they came straight from Colombia to Elizabeth, New Jersey, and they all just landed there. And that also taught me, like, community is so strong. Like, you know, there's something so beautiful about being in spaces that are truly just unified for your people. And now in my adult life, I've transitioned into New York, and also in my later high school years, early college years, I came out. So it was like understanding that my queerness is also deeply linked to my brownness, and how the queer community in New York is based off of Black and brown people, and just that whole community is built from people just like me. And what is also so beautiful about that is the act of chosen family, and just really understanding that we can create also a community of people that really represent us, whether that's, you know, in our like-mindedness or just people that are culturally parallel to us. It's a beautiful thing to be from somewhere that allows you to explore, and just really allows you to, you know, question yourself and question your surroundings. And I don't think I would have gotten that experience if I didn't grow up in New Jersey and New York. I think I'm really blessed. I feel really blessed to be in a space that really allows you to ask those questions and just sort of, like, create this new history. You know, it's very challenging to you know, not feel stuck with all these barriers that are placed in front of us. And it's a matter of, like, okay, we all have the same perspective. We all have the same mentality on how we see the industry. Let's do the damn thing. Let's really, if it's not there, like, let's create it. Let's deepen it. Let's really figure out how we can amplify it to the best of our abilities, that adequately represents all of us in a way that is super blended, in a way that really is just, that intersectionality is just, we need to have more of that. Like, we really need to understand that as POC, as BIPOC, we are all linked through something. And it's important for us to really come together, and if we don't have each other's back, nobody's gonna have our back. So it's, yeah. Same thing. I'm like, oh, wait, what's the question again?
I think it's the biggest thing for me on this question is tradition. I think that something that makes me a little bit different from the rest of the panel here is that, like I said earlier, not really knowing what my background is, right? So it was, in the past few years, I've been thinking about, what are my traditions, right? What were family traditions? We went to the movies on Christmas. Like, is that a tradition? It can be, I guess, right? So I've been trying to create my own, right? And so keeping tradition alive, I think, is, especially if you don't know what your traditions are, is finding things that are meaningful in the industry or something, and making sure that it continues to happen, you know? And that was a big thing for me on this question, was, what is tradition? What is tradition has been a big thing for me for the past few years and to the rest of my life, because I want to make sure that I am creating something. And I think a lot of us in the Black community who understand that we were removed, that's what we've been doing as Black culture, is creating traditions that we can remember. And that's what we trying to push through in the industry also, and keeping that alive. I didn't know we were...
Kapri, before we move on to the next question, I think now is the perfect time to speak on the cocktails that we created for ourselves.
Absolutely, because mine is so good. Sorry. I'm gonna try not to drink it too fast.
So I gave everybody an assignment to create a cocktail. Unfortunately, y'all aren't trying it right now, but for our panel, of just a cocktail that represents you in some sort of way. So I'll pass the mic back down.
Yeah, so what I'm drinking is actually based off of a traditional Raramuri beverage called, it's a couple different things. I've used both my Raramuri and Chiricahua heritage for this, but there's something called Isquiate, which is the precursor to what you probably know as like chia fresca, if you've ever been to like parts of Latin America where they make these. Usually it's just chia and water and usually some sort of fruit to sort of like sweeten or enhance it. In this case, I like to use prickly pear a lot when I'm making this at home. So instead, there's a prickly pear brandy in this to represent that flavor. And then I combined it with something called chinkose, which chinkose is a traditional Apache drink. On the reservation, it has the nickname Apache Kool-Aid. It's made from the berry of the three-leaf sumac, which is native to the parts of Arizona and New Mexico that we're from. And it has a very lemon-like flavor, so you make a sun tea with it that basically has a very sort of like astringent, lemony flavor to it. And you will a lot of times people sweeten it with just regular sugar, but agave is a traditional food of the Apache people, so I used a little bit of agave syrup to just add a little sweetness to balance that sour and blend it all together. And so I ended up with a nice little cocktail that's a combination of both my heritages.
Yeah, I decided to do kind of like a Sazerac type vibe, just speaking to what I spoke on about New York being a melting pot, New Orleans being a melting pot, the port city. I hope to, it's kind of diluted now, but you get the gist of it. So it had the herb Saint rinse as a traditional Sazerac would have. We blended both the rye whiskey as well as cognac, both which have historical roots to the drink itself. On being the go-to. I like to do a split base always, 'cause that's just my thing. We put a little banana liqueur in there because I just find a way to slip that in. That's my ketchup. Bartender's ketchup. The banana is my ketchup, or a little bit of hibiscus. Hibiscus is not in here, but a little bit of banana liqueur as well as Pedro Jimenez sherry to blend the Spanish influence. We have not rum. We have Peychaud's bitters in there, which, Antoine Peychaud there's so many, like, what was the original cocktail? What was the first cocktail? Where did it come from? He's in that mix. And he has his roots here being of French descent, Haitian. So I had to include that in there just to give a nod to the originator of this, but we found ways to include Spanish, French, American, and Caribbean. Yeah. I'm like, what's the other? Yeah, but that's that.
Love it. I created something refreshing, highball. I really like that. That's my style. If you go to my pop-ups, that's pretty much what I'm making. But Nixta Elote liqueur, Finca orange liqueur, community spirit vodka, soda water, lime, and celery bitters, and it's like waking me up. It's so good. I came in today was like, what did I make? So I'm happy I did that. So we are going to getting a little low on time. We really do want to make sure you all have questions. What? Oh, thank you. Now they tell me. But we're gonna just kind of get into our last question so that we can be able to speak with you all. Did I not do it? Is it one more? Okay. Don't know why I'm whispering. All right. So, for the panel, what do you have for our industries? What visions do you have for our industries in terms of inclusivity, representation, and innovation?
I just would like to see in the future a place where everybody in this industry can come and bring their whole, complete selves. I know we all do it because it's just something that you have to do as a queer person, as a BIPOC individual. You have to constantly be reining yourself in and burying parts of yourself to be professional. I speak differently. I'll speak differently here than I will with my friend. Exactly. Chalky's nodding because Chalky knows me out in in the real world. But you definitely have to rein yourself in because you want to project an air of professionality. And we really need to get to a point where we don't view all of our experiences and the way that we talk in these things as unprofessional. Basically anything that's not coded as like white as unprofessional. And that's what I'm hoping. I mean, we're seeing changes in the industry. How much of that is like people legitimately, is brands just, you know, showing face and stuff like that and not actually like enforcing that. But we are starting to see some of that come through. And that's my vision for the future. When I started in production, like I said, there weren't other native distillers that at least I knew of at the time. And so it's also just like making those better spaces so that the person that's coming behind you can have a much easier time. And I try to pull up the newer people entering the industry behind me and show them the resources, make sure they're taking scholarship opportunities and things like that. I'd love it to be to the point where we don't need those things to be able to exist in this industry, but until then, it's creating more of those opportunities. It's making it's making space for ourselves and for the people that come after us, and making sure that path is always easier for the person coming behind us.
I'm sorry, I just do want to say a little bit on the like code switching part. Sometimes, you know, certain communities don't need to know what is yours, what is for your community, right? Like I sometimes it's just like, this is for us, and this is how, and respecting that. I think we need to start respecting that we don't have to be in it, if that makes any sense, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, I firmly believe that there's things that obviously that are just for you and your community. And I think the other thing is like people getting used to hearing the word no and being respectful of that. Like if somebody says no, respect that and move on. And don't turn it into a thing, and don't get defensive, and don't try to make it that way. You need to just understand that not everything is for you. And that's okay. And that's okay.
Yeah, everything is not for you. There's a party here that specifically their intention behind it was creating safe spaces for Black people and people of color and queer and all of those things, to just not feel like you have to hold back and you can just go there and enjoy. Plug, it's called Ascendance, you know, but other people are welcome, but they have to pay. And you have to like, I don't remember the rules, but there's a whole bunch of rules to make sure that it is a safe space for others. Visions that I have for the industry, I spoke on a lot already. Access to these certifications, creating more scholarship opportunities, things of that nature, more brand supports and allocations of budgets towards further learning for bartenders that they may be employing throughout the year or that they have connections with. That would be nice. Representation matters. Part of the reason why I found myself in this industry and was really inspired to join something like Turning Tables, which you should all follow on Instagram right now, Turning Tables NOLA, is because I didn't see a lot of people that looked like me behind these bars doing craft cocktail, you know? And they're in the club, they're at the dive bar, but they're not in the craft cocktail space. Until now, I'm seeing a bit more, and I love that for us. Like I said before, maintaining those DEI efforts and really holding true to your word and advocating for the people who you do bring into that space, and not just, hey, I gave you this opportunity, have fun. It's just like, no, how are you gonna show up for them and make this a comfortable space for them? Ways that you can hold space and create these opportunities beyond just the months that are designated towards them, like Black History Month, Latin Heritage, Caribbean Heritage, all these things. Like the work goes beyond that. How can you celebrate these people outside of just this marketing scheme? And then I think of myself, and the vision that I have for myself has a lot to do with the others that surround me. And I just know that it is my responsibility to continue to reach higher and go further, because the people who are watching my story and my journey, I see Miss B back there, and I'm so happy that she's here. This is someone I consider a mentee, and I just, you know, I know that there are people looking up to me, whether they have close proximity to me or not, and it's my responsibility you know, at the end of the day, like I feel that wholeheartedly that I need to show up as my best self, not only for myself, but the legacy that I want to create and the people that I represent and the organizations that I'm attached to and the people that I want to make proud, you know? So I think it's all of our responsibilities. If we say we want these things, you have to hold yourself to a certain standard where people look at you and they can co-sign you like, yeah, I'm happy I let them in. Who else do they have to bring with them? And we focus so much on like the gatekeepers, and I'm like, yeah, that's cool, but focus your efforts on building your own table and bringing those people in. So that's where I'm at with that. Yeah, on that note.
Yeah, I'm gonna double down on everything they said. Yeah, no, it is so important for us to stick our ground, and yeah, no means no, and yes, sometimes it's not for you, and that is a-okay. And just understanding that it is our responsibility as industry leaders, and especially people in hospitality management, to make their spaces safe spaces for other people. You know, a zero tolerance policy, just in general, it's the customer is not always right, you know? And I think it's very, very important to prioritize the safety of our communities, and that is often overlooked like crazy. And we're in an industry that is comprised of majority BIPOC, majority queer, and it's very important, it is extremely important for this industry to understand that our safety is the #1 priority. And it is okay to say no. It is okay to say that this space is not for you. It is okay to say that, allies, be mindful of the space that you're taking up, because they've been taking up space, and it is now time for us to reclaim the space that is ours and was always ours. And yeah, everything that y'all said was absolutely, yes, cosign.
So we do want to get into Q&A, questions and answers. First question is, did we answer some of your questions? Yeah, hands if we did. And then, does anybody have questions that we weren't able or didn't answer for you? Do you want to ask the panel? Yes. Do you want a mic?
I don't know if I need it.
No, you're fine.
you're good.
I'm a New Yorker, so I speak loud. Okay, hi y'all. My name is Jana or Jazz. I do freelance travel, arts, culture, writing, and love like everything that y'all were talking about. What kinds of stories, narratives, do you feel like are missing from the conversation, particularly about QTBIPOC folks? I want to know so that I can support in sharing that type of stuff, but just curious about like, what's your like dream stories that you want to see, or like what do you feel like is missing that is not part of the conversation more publicly about the work you're doing, who you are, like what you just said about 2018.
Child.
My mind was like, you can't be
What the
serious.
fuck?
So just wanted to ask that, if you don't mind sharing that, just because that's something I'm really curious about.
So what I'd love to see more of, just from a personal perspective, is because most of the time when we talk about Natives, it's the sob story and tragedy story, and I want people to celebrate the cool things that we're doing and our successes. I want to see more stories about people succeeding in this industry. That's my point of view. Is like, I think we really like to focus on the like, and there's an underdog aspect that I get makes for good writing and like an interesting story or whatever. But we're not just traumas and tragedies. Right. We are vibrant, happy like communities, and we should be celebrating our joy. And that's what I want to see more. I want to see more stories like that.
No, 1,000%. We need to completely change the narrative to, well, yes, acknowledging the trauma and acknowledging the dark parts, but celebrating and just really celebrating each other, understanding that like the people that came before us are just like us. And in addition to acknowledging their trials and tribulations, we have to celebrate their success and what they've been able to create for us, to then build on top of that success to create more opportunities for the people that are coming right after us. So yeah, I think it's important for us to just acknowledge that we are here beyond our trauma. That is the perfect way to put it. We are so much more than that, and it's important for us to be mindful. Yeah.
Celebrate us while we're here. Yeah, that one.
My Venmo is.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
So, as we're in the alcoholic beverage industry and spirits, relating closely to Native American and Egyptian and Muslim cultures, where alcohol consumption and abuse has been such an issue, partially because of colonization. What are good ways that we can use this industry and these traditions to exalt and empower our cultures, rather and kind of eliminate that harm that has been caused or
Again, for me, a lot of that is just reconnecting people with a history that isn't a negative one, because we all have histories with alcohol. Like as cultures, like alcohol has existed in pretty much every community forever. And it's, for me personally, I think it's finding those connections, those ancestral stories and things like that, and reminding people that it's not just the horrible things that happen in colonization, but also creating safe spaces for the people that don't want to partake. So making sure that you have no ABV, low ABV options for the people that are in our communities that maybe don't want to partake because of that history, and that they're still welcome and that they still have space to exist.
Yeah, I think just going back to the talks of this entire seminar on roots, celebrating and speaking of where these traditions come from. My first trip to Oaxaca, I was able to see, and go to the Palenque, and I'm just like, wow, y'all drink a lot. But then like to hear the stories, it's just like, no, this is how we celebrate and fellowship with each other, and I'm just like, okay, cool. And then I think back to my household where we always have like sorrow, like around the holidays, and it's like, there's rum in that, so like, what are these other stories where alcohol is like used in celebration and not like thought of as like overconsumption? I think about, people who practice spirituality and they pour out libations for their ancestors. Like there's so many different ways that we can look at it and see beyond like, oh, you're just trying to get people drunk. Because people look at me and they're just like, oh, you bartend? You just get people wasted? You party all the time? Like, no, it's beyond that. And I think in ways I've been able to fellowship with people and build new relationships and connections through it. It's not because we were over consuming, but we were just chilling and decompressing with each other, or tasting spirits, and spitting it out and just learning how much work and how many hands have touched this one product. And it's something that is just so beautiful, and the alchemy of it all is just like very inspiring, that there are families being supported by this process beyond us just getting drunk at the bar.
Yeah. And just very quickly, not all Arabs are Muslim, and not all Arabs, some of us drink, like, so just taking that Islamophobia and throwing it out the door, like there is absolutely no reason for there to be less than a handful of Middle Eastern Arab cocktail bars and cocktail programs. It's understanding that we are so much more, and not all of these things are mutually exclusive. Like there is the diaspora of the Arab community is absolutely so vast and so nuanced that we really need to understand, and we need to be able to separate the two and just really know that, we're here and we exist, and not, it's like not everybody is this person that politics, that media, that this phobia has turned us, or has turned the public to see us as. So.
I have a question. Yes. How do you deal with the frustration and anger that you get from being othered within our industry? How are some of the ways that you cope with it?
Shine brighter.
If a mic drop could drop. Okay. That is such a great question. I'm going to say honestly, first, cry and scream in the house, right? Let the emotion go, and then kind of think about what brings joy to you about your community, and how do you show people that. Does that make sense? and let it overtake your anger inside, if that makes any sense. That's how I deal with it. I like literally like. There's been so many times where I'm like, what, this is fucking stupid. Like, oh my God. And then when I get to an oh my God, I am this person with people, with things in general. And sometimes when it's out of my control, I but when I can control something, it's why the fuck do I feel so fucking angry? Why? Right? And then what the fuck can I do? Can I do something? Do I know someone that can do something? I don't? Let me search for it. Okay, now let's do it. If that makes any sense, right? What is the reason? What is the solution to eliminate this anger? Let's get it done.
And we are like just out of time, but one last note for your question is just take up space and make people uncomfortable. We've been made uncomfortable our entire lives, and it is now time for us to be fully there, fully present, take up all the space that you want to take, and just be proud about it. Like there's nobody there that can shame us anymore, honestly. And it's a hard process and it's difficult, and we're gonna be filled with rage and anger and passion, and all of these things are so within us, but we gotta take up the space, and that is the only way for us to really just say, yeah, that's it.
Knuckle up.
No,
Don't be afraid to knuckle up.
And then to conclude, everybody on their table has a My Community Is sticker. If you would like to put whatever community you feel like you are a part of, whatever that may be, we have a beautiful board over there that we would love to see all of your communities that you are so strongly linked to. And yeah, feel free to put that up there. I just want to say thank you so much to Casa Lumbre Spirits, the Community Spirit Vodka, for giving us the platform to be here today. Thank you so much to Kapri, Rox, Erika, and LyAnna and Spirit for giving us your insight, your talent, your time, and just being able to share this space with me. I can't even put it into words.
Okay.
Thank you.
We did it.
We did it. And thank you to all of you for being in this space today and listening to us talk. Have a great rest of your tails.